Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 7th episode of Story in which the third Hokage finally resolves to do something about Naruto's treatment, and he seeks the assistance of someone known for influencing things from the shadows. When Naruto has everything he needs, including an elder brother who will do anything to protect him, what could possibly go wrong? Please subscribe and smash the like button. Now, let's jump right in.
Hiruzen sighed as he slumped back into his chair. Standing in front of him was Kana, or Mikado Uchiha to be more precise. Technically, she had changed her name, Mikado Uchiha being officially dead, but the old man simply couldn't see her as a different person. It had been a little difficult to allow the woman to so casually leave Sasuke on his own, but by the time she had recovered from being stabbed through the heart, the young Uchiha had already desensitized himself to most things. The fact that she proved to be a nearly unmatched asset when it came to the more covert and secretive missions didn't mean anything to him. After Izo's sudden integration into things, the woman was practically the only real option for caring for him and Naruto. She had, after all, raised quite possibly the most powerful shinobi in Konoha history who hadn't become Hokage. Hiruzen had very little doubt that Itachi could have very well attained said title had the situation with the Uchiha clan been resolved peacefully. For now though, the prodigious Uchiha would have to continue with his spying on his Akatsuki group. The information that Itachi had discovered was actually the exact reason that he suddenly felt much older than he normally would, which wasn't saying much these days. So, whatever the creature was, it seemed to be under the impression that Madara Uchiha is still alive and manipulating this group from behind the scenes? The Hokage asked tiredly. Mikoto, who had actually removed her mask, nodded. It seemed to serve under this pain person, but its concerns were directly regarding Madara himself. Itachi did say that not even he is sure on the legitimacy of this information, but just in case, we should be prepared for if it truly is him, she said calmly. Sarutobi groaned. There is no such thing as being prepared for Madara Uchiha. Unless we somehow find the means to resurrect Hashirama-sensei, well, there isn't very much we could do to stop that man. For now, we will act as if this is only a rumor. We can't have anyone going around thinking that Madara of all people is still running around, no matter how outlandish such accusations might be. We will continue going through with our original plans and act only when it is absolutely necessary. A war is the last thing we need. The Hokage was all too aware of what Madara was capable of in his prime. The idea of the Uchiha living this long was a testament to his stubbornness to life. Still, Hashirama was probably the only person capable of defeating the man who had been able to summon and control the Kyuubi as a pet. Even he, who had at one point been capable of holding his own against both of the legendary Senju, would not be arrogant enough to face the Uchiha alone in battle. One did not get to his age by being stupid. And what are we going to do about this Fu girl that you had my boys bring back? They should be here within a few hours and I don't think Naruto would let you do anything inhumane to someone so much like him, the woman said with concern. Tell me something, Mikado. If Naruto, and by extension Izo, chose to forsake this village, to leave it and go about their own lives, would you follow them? Would you side with them over Konoha? Hiruzen asked curiously. Mikoto closed her eyes for a moment as she truly thought over the question. Truthfully? Yes. I would follow my boys wherever they went for so long as they need me to, and I would do so without any regrets, she answered. And what of Sasuke and Itachi? Would you not show them the same dedication? The old man inquired. The Uchiha looked down sadly. I love my sons, I still do, more than anyone else could. But they lost me a long time ago, as I lost them. Itachi was always far too distant to get very attached to, not that that was his fault really, Fugaku was always too hard on him. Sasuke took the massacre hard. I would love nothing more than to see him as he once was before Itachi killed everyone. But as he is now, I can't see the little boy that I raised anymore. Naruto and Izo though, they needed me yes, but they wanted me more than they would care to admit. I do not doubt that Naruto would foolishly throw his life away for me, so who would I be to not show the same dedication? Hiruzen smiled sadly. Maternal instincts are one thing I will never truly understand, thank Kemi. But still, I am glad that you would do that for the boys. His expression quickly went more serious and stern. Keeping that in mind, I am ordering you to do something for me. For the meantime you shall continue to do what you are doing, completing mission when I need you to and caring for the boys, but should anything happen to me, I want you to dedicate your full allegiance to the Uzumakis. Your ties to the village will only be decided by them and you will not be required to follow any orders given to you by Konoha. What do you mean if something should happen to you? Don't tell me you're dying, Mikado said with wide eyes. The old Kage chuckled lightly. No Mikado, I'm not dying just yet. I fear that something is coming soon that I may not be able to survive. I'm long since past my prime after all. Should I not make it, I worry that Danzo will return to his old ways. He may have gotten a little better over the past few years, but he is still cold and calculating when it comes to what he perceives is best for the village. I have no doubt that he would prepare the village for a war if he heard about the chances of Madara still being alive, he explained. You want me to protect the boys from him, don't you? She asked. Yes and no. Although I do fear what he may do, I also have hope that he will continue to work in the same manner that he is now, which will ultimately ensure the boys' safety anyway. I am merely ordering you to do what is best for the boys from your own point of view. I honestly couldn't trust their well-being to anyone more appropriate. I hope you will not let me down, Sarutobi said with a barely noticeable sternness to his voice. Of course, Lord Hokage, Mikado said, bowing low. I feel betrayed that you don't think me and Naruto could look after ourselves, Izo said as he simply appeared next to Mikado. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate the concern. It is quite heartwarming after all. Mikado tried to hastily put her mask back on but quickly realized that it wouldn't do much anymore, so she hung her head and sighed deeply. How long have you and Naruto known who I am? She asked in defeat. Izo waved her off dismissively. A couple of years now. It wasn't all too difficult to figure out after I sensed you pumping chakra into your eyes. Naruto almost tried to chase you down and hug you to death, something about remembering you from before the Uchiha massacre, but I managed to stop that catastrophe. We've just been waiting for an opportune moment to reveal our knowledge so you will finally stop wearing that mask around us, he explained casually. A Sharingan-fueled glare drew Izo's full attention to the woman. You've known for years now and you still let me parade around in that mask? Did it ever occur to you that maybe I was waiting for you to figure it out so I could stop wearing it? Mikado asked dangerously. Of course it did, but you could have also just come out and told us who you were? Don't think about blaming us for that one. We were actually waiting quite patiently for you to tell us yourself. We figured it was hard for you and we didn't want to rush you. That being said, it was also pretty funny to watch you go about everything while keeping that mask on. Izo snickered at his last comment, completely ignoring the death stare he was getting from Mikado. Izo, just how far away are the real you and the rest of the team? Hiruzen asked calmly, making sure not to chuckle at Mikado's expense. Oh, I am the real me. The team is stuck with the clone for now and they'll be here in around about an hour or so. Sakura's lack of physical endurance is really slowing us down, the teen complained. That girl is still acting like a fangirl? Mikado asked skeptically. I am actually considering removing her from Shinobi duty altogether. I would rather hear the complaining about her being removed than listen to her parents whine about her death. Girls like her are supposed to have been weeded out in the academy, Sarutobi groaned. Yeah, well, the current curriculum is beyond ridiculous. There is a reason why we have such poor results in how many Jinan teams pass each year, Izo said offhandedly. I suppose I will need to start correcting that problem prematurely. Our plans are all going quite smoothly so far, hopefully everything will come to fruition soon. All we need is a big enough distraction to get everything set up, Hiruzen mused idly. Anyway, you are free to go, Mikado. You can hand in your mask as well if you wish, he added with a smirk. Very funny, she drawled. I thought so too. Please take Izo with you as well. I'll get the team to debrief me when they arrive and I'll send Naruto and Fu straight home to you. Make sure Kurotsuchi is going alright while you're at it. The poor girl and I had an unfortunate encounter the other day, Hiruzen said finally, waving the two off lazily. Izo quickly went to shunshine out of the office only to have his head smashed into the ground by the sheathed sword of Mikado. The Uchiha proceeded to pick him up his collar and glare straight at him with her Sharingan blazing. You and I are going to have a little talk about why it wasn't funny watching me wear that mask. When Naruto gets home I'll also be giving him that talk as well, she growled. Oh yeah, that reminds me. The Nanabi Jinchuriki, Fu, she doesn't have a clue about some things that she really ought to know about. She didn't even know what the term the birds and the bees meant. She also seems to be slightly attached to Naruto, if only because he is also a Jinchuriki, so I think I will need your help in giving her the talk. Is that cool? The blind teen asked curiously. She doesn't know? Mikado asked in horror. That is horrible. We have to go and prepare everything. The girl needs to be educated quickly, and Kurotsuchi can join in as well just to be safe, she said frantically before returning to glaring at Izo. This still doesn't get you out of the ass-kicking you deserve, she growled. Of course, Izo grumbled. Hiruzen watched the two disappear in the sunshine, his eyes widened in terror. Those poor girls. What have I done? He mumbled. 2 hours and a bit later, is that all? Sarutobi asked tiredly. The members of Team 7 all nodded in unison. Hiruzen felt a good few years older than he had an hour ago, which was really saying something. He knew things had gone a little bit iffy in the capturing of Fu, but for the girl to have gone completely off the hook in trying to kill Naruto and Danzo, he found it hard to see the happily smiling green-haired girl as anything other than innocent. The fact that she was clinging to Naruto's arm was completely irrelevant to his assumption. So not only did you manage to provoke Fu here into using her Baijuwu, but you also managed to make most of Taki happy and inform Lord Shibuki of what we are intending to do with Taki's Jinchuriki. Have I got all that right? The old man asked. More or less, yeah, that's about it, Naruto replied casually. Well then, mission well done I suppose. Thankfully, things didn't go badly and the overall goal was achieved. You are all dismissed for now, but I expect you to all be prepared for another mission within the next couple of days. I have one set to the side for your team specifically. Okay old man, have fun, Naruto exclaimed as he ran out of the room, Fu still clinging to his arm like a lifeline. Am I the only one concerned about how close the girl was to Naruto? Sakura asked curiously. Everyone turned to stare at her blankly, including Sasuke. Yes, they all answered in unison before going about their own things, leaving the pinkette to walk home alone. Everyone except for Kakashi left the office. The silver-haired Cyclops put his book away for a moment and stared lazily at the Hokage with his one eye. I know that we have talked about the boys before, but I am still not sure how this team is supposed to work the way it is. Naruto and Danzo are simply too far ahead of Sakura and Sasuke, the latter of the two is taking that quite hard might I add. A four-man team isn't exactly unheard of, but a team that is so obviously uneven is not going to work out well for anyone, especially with the Chunin exams a few months away, he said, voicing his concerns. Don't worry so much Kakashi, I have already thought about this and come to several possible solutions. There was more than one reason for why I wanted Fu brought to Konoha, and it just so happens that she herself will need a team to be with. For now, Team 7 will continue as it is, but I will be required to move the team structure around a bit when the time comes, Hiruzen explained. Will this be a drastic restructuring, or merely a minor switch around? Kakashi asked curiously. The Hokage shrugged. A little in between I suppose. Nothing to worry about for now. However, I strongly suggest that you try to really get through to Sakura. It would be a draining experience for me to dismiss her from shinobi duty. If you feel that you cannot accomplish such a thing, then I would recommend you get help, possibly from Kurenai or Anko-chan, he suggested. Anko? The Jonin asked disbelievingly. Are you sure you're thinking right, Lord Hokage? He asked with his one eye narrowed curiously. Kakashi, I can assure you that I am thinking perfectly fine. Anko is an exceptional kunoichi and loyal to a fault. I understand that her past leaves questions to be answered, but I do not appreciate my judgment being questioned, Hiruzen said sternly. No, I didn't mean it like that. It's just that Anko's behavior and attitude towards things is not exactly something I would wish to impress onto a young girl like Sakura, the Cyclops reasoned. Her methods get positive results. I fail to see what the real problem is. Are you actually telling me to corrupt an innocent girl into becoming a potentially bloodthirsty, assassination specializing, torturer? Kakashi asked in shock. Your words, Kakashi, not mine. But now that you've put such an idea so openly on the table, I wouldn't be so against it. We really do need more capable kunoichi these days. The amount of ogling material is sorely lacking in this village. Hiruzen gained a slightly brooding expression at that last part. Okay. Well, I'll get right onto it then. Do you happen to know where I might find Kurenai? The silver-haired man inquired. Probably with that Hyuga girl. She has taken quite a liking to her student, although I am not sure if that is such a good thing. Now that I think about it, Asuma has still been quite lax in his duties as Jonin instructor as well. It seems as though none of you actually took my warning seriously, which means I will be needing to reinforce my statement. The old Sarutobi stared blankly at Kakashi. Kakashi, I trust you will not need to be reminded to train your team properly instead of babying them like children. Shinobi work is no place for children. Kakashi sighed and nodded his head slowly. I understand. I will try to get through to Sakura, but I do not promise anything, the Jonin said before waving quickly and disappearing in a sunshine. Hiruzen let out a deep breath as he leant back in his chair. He really needed to find some way to spend more time out of his office. Naruto and Fu's eyes widened fearfully at the scene they walked into in the lounge room of the Namikaze mansion. Hanging from the ceiling by a rope tied around his feet, was none other than Nizo, the clone of whom had disappeared not too long after the team had been dismissed by the Hokage. Normally, such a sight wouldn't warrant much concern considering the older teen's questionable mental health, but the fact that he was currently being used as a punching bag by a much too happy Kurotsuchi raised a bit of suspicion. An unmasked Mikado giving the girl advice was also worth noting. Naruto. What are we supposed to do here? Fu asked shakily. Don't make any sudden movements and back away slowly. Whatever Mikado is mad about is best dealt with by Izo himself, the blonde replied. But it looks like he's getting hurt, the girl said worriedly. A noble sacrifice for the greater good, I assure you. Our safety is what is important right now, not his, Naruto insisted. Are you sure it's alright to do this? Fu asked. She really didn't like the idea of just abandoning Izo to such a fate, even if she wasn't aware of how he got into such a situation. "Ah, you brought home your cute little girlfriend Naru-chan," Mikado exclaimed cheerfully from behind the two young teens, her Sharingan quickly deactivating. Naruto slumped his shoulders in defeat. "So? You finally figured out that we knew who you were the whole time?" he asked. "Yep, which happens to be why Izo is in the state he is right now," the Uchiha replied happily. Who are you?" Fu asked curiously. "Oh dear, I've gotten ahead of myself, haven't I? I'm Kana, formerly Mikado Uchiha, and the adoptive mother of Naruto and Izo here. And I believe you're Fu of Takigakour," Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. Kana introduced herself. "Yeah, don't worry about me being here, you know, the Iwa girl who could be a potential spy for all you know. Just keep throwing valuable information around without a care in the world," Kurotsuchi droned sarcastically. Kana shrugged. "It's not like you don't already know enough valuable information, what's a little more going to do?" she said dismissively. Fu deadpanned at the woman. "Well, at least that explains where Naruto and Izo got their devil-may-care attitudes from. You are just too cute. Who would have thought that my boys would be bringing such lovely girls home so soon?" Kana wiped away a non-existent tear. "It's what every mother dreams of." Fu blushed brightly at the statement while Kurotsuchi gagged loudly and went back to beating the living shit out of Izo. Naruto facepalmed and groaned at his adoptive mother's antics. There was just no winning when it came to his family, no winning at all. "Naruto. If that's you, I could really use some help right about Enga." Izo grunted as Kurotsuchi buried her fist into his stomach again. "No talking. Punching bags don't talk," she growled menacingly. "Someone kill me. Please," the strung-up teen pleaded pathetically. "What the hell do you think I'm trying to do? Now shut up and take it like a man," the Iwakunoichi ordered as she returned to wailing on the poor boy. "Serves him right for thinking it was funny that I wore that mask for so long. It was a test for you boys, I swear." "That's it," Mikado said, nodding her head as she did so as to emphasize her point. From here on, I'm just going to refer to her as Mikado. Two names for her is going to send me insane. I'll refer to her as Kana when the situation requires her identity to be kept secret. We know, that's why we left it. We honestly wanted to see just how long you would keep it up," Naruto explained. Mikado pouted childishly. "That's mean," she grumbled. "Don't worry. We still love you," the blonde assured her. "I don't." Izo called out. "That bitch is dead to Emma. Kuro-chan. Why? My precious pieces," he whimpered pathetically. Naruto and Fu winced slightly while Mikado just smiled sweetly. "I really like that girl. There are so many things wrong with what's happening here, but I'm going to ignore it for my own safety's sake," Naruto stated before turning to Fu with a warm smile. "Anything you would like to do now that we're here?" Can I join her?" Fu asked innocently, pointing at Kurotsuchi who was still punching Izo. I am just so proud. Such gorgeous and strong girls," Mikado said, hugging Fu tightly, much to the girl's confusion. "You know, when I imagined being tag-teamed by two girls, this was not what I had in mind," Izo yelled the last part angrily before quickly being silenced by Kurotsuchi. Naruto deadpanned at everyone else in the room. When he brought Fu home, this was very far down the list on things he expected to happen. It was still on the list, along with every other physically possible scenario and a few not possible ones, but it was so far down the list that he almost disregarded it. He should have learnt long ago that having Izo as a brother and Mikado as a mother would mean that the weirder option was always more likely to occur. It was a contradiction to the blonde's natural luck that his closest people would naturally draw the most unlucky situations to existence. That being said, Naruto decided to cut his losses before it was too late and flashed to his bedroom. Fu had already gone about beating the shit out of Izo, so she didn't take much notice of his disappearance. Reaching his room, the blonde dumped his sealing scrolls onto his desk and decided to put his highly recognizable coat on. It was actually the most comfortable thing he owned and he liked to show off when he could. A slight tugging-like feeling in the back of his mind made itself present again as he noticed, if only barely, that his chakra was still being drained in minuscule amounts. It hadn't really bothered him since he had been out of the village for a while, and the amount was still so insignificant in comparison to his reserves, But now that he wasn't distracted, he couldn't help but take notice of it. Naruto knew that it was one of the fox kids he had left Ashi to play with, but how the thing had remained in Konoha for this long was beyond him. He still intended to find out though. Tracking down the Inuzuka wouldn't be difficult, but he still had to keep an eye on Fu for the most part. It would be very bad if he left her alone in her current state of not knowing social norms or terms. The fox boy's eyes shot open as a truly evil glimmer shone through his sapphire orbs. He knew exactly how to kill several birds with one stone, even if there was a chance that Fu would kill him for it later. The benefits for now would hopefully be worth it. With most of a plan formed in his mind, the blonde flashed back downstairs, only to freeze and stare fearfully at the badly beaten and bloody form of his brother, a decent-sized puddle of the crimson liquid having formed under where the older teen was hanging. The embarrassed expression on Fu's face, the proud one on Mikoto's, and the shocked one on Kurotsuchi's, painted quite a picture as to what happened while he was gone. "I can't feel my legs anymore. Just kill me now," Izo groaned, somehow still managing to talk with what was assumingly a shattered ribcage. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you that hard," Fu apologized. It was clear that she was on the verge of having a minor panic attack over nearly killing a potential friend. The green-haired girl's fears were cut short as Mikoto pulled her in for a hug. "You are so staying with us from now on. Don't worry about Izo here, he'll be back up in an hour or so. How about we get you settled into your new room?" the woman said cheerfully. "Actually," Naruto began, drawing everyone's attention to him. "Fu here is a bit unknowledgeable about some very important things. I think it might be best if you gave her the talk before anything else, just so we can avoid any near-future misunderstandings," he said calmly, mustering up all his willpower to keep a smirk from forming on his lips. Mikoto gasped. "I had completely forgotten about that," she exclaimed as she hugged Fu a little tighter. "Don't worry, I'll teach you everything you need to know." Kurotsuchi stared at Fu in surprise. "You haven't gotten the talk? What kind of rock were you living under all these years?" The Iwakunoichi paused as an evil grin slowly tugged at her lips. "I am so sticking around to see your reaction to this," she declared happily. "Awesome. You guys have fun teaching Fu the birds and the bees while I go and sort out a small problem I'm having. Make sure to look after her and keep an eye on Izo," Naruto said quickly before flashing out of existence. "Does he do that often?" Fu asked. Not really. He isn't a big fan of acting like his father. But that isn't important right now. Izo. We're giving Fu the talk, so get up and look presentable," Mikoto ordered, clapping her hands in a hasty manner. Before Fu could react, she was pulled off of her feet and sat down in a chair that Izo had gotten from somewhere, Kurotsuchi being put through the same process right beside her. Mikoto snapped her fingers and two large diagrams appeared on either side of her, a small blackboard appearing behind her, and a long wooden pointer appearing in her hands. The Uchiha had also pulled out a pair of glasses from nowhere and put them on as Izo moved to his spot beside her, the older teen having apparently healed completely from his earlier injuries. Throughout all of this, Fu remained confused while Kurotsuchi was content with sitting back and watching the poor girl get tortured. Now, Sex Education 101. Everything you need to know or want to know can and will be answered in this session, along with everything you don't need to or don't want to know. As I always say, it's better to know everything there is about something than not enough, the black-haired woman lectured sternly. For whatever reason, she had gained the demeanor of a kind yet somehow cross teacher, not that anyone was going to go against it. To start off, we're going to go over the basics. What is sex? The genitalia, the act itself, and of course the safety precautions one should take. These will all be answered in due time. Any questions? Is this like what the Taki Council tried to teach me? Like with the baby making and stuff? Fu asked curiously. Precisely. But we will be focusing on the more enjoyable aspects of it for now. The baby making, as you put it, shouldn't be of concern to you for a long time yet, Mikoto answered happily. So, where to begin? Kurotsuchi raised her hand and smirked. I think we should start her on the gritty details first. You know, just drop her in the deep end first, she suggested sweetly. Mikoto smiled and nodded her head. I knew there was a good reason why I like you, she chirped. Izo watched on as Mikoto began to teach Fu everything there was about the subject at hand, the poor girl's face slowly getting more and more horrified as things went on. He knew that by the time Naruto got back it would be far too late, he and Mikoto would have already turned her to the dark side. He just hoped that he didn't get blamed for it like everything else. Naruto could feel the foreboding sense of dread slowly building in the back of his mind, and he knew that it may have been a terrible idea to leave Fu in the hands of his family, but at the moment, he really couldn't care. In the end, it would work out for everyone, one way or another. The girl really did need to be taught about those things at some point, and as much as he hated to admit it, Mikoto was probably the most knowledgeable and capable of doing so, as disturbing as that fact was. Shaking his head of those thoughts, Naruto returned to the task at hand, tracking down Ashi and finding his summon. In truth, he already knew exactly where she was, but the getting to her was proving to be a little more challenging than he first assumed. Turned out she was somewhere in the Inuzuka clan compound and pretty close to the center of it if his senses were right. Clan compounds were always the most guarded locations of the village, despite what some would rather have you believe. Sneaking into Konoha itself was never the problem for spies, it was sneaking into whatever compound they were tasked to spy on. The Inuzuka had proved to be one of the top 3 clans when it came to keeping out unwanted guests, only being behind the Hyuga, who were in turn thwarted by the Aburame. The canine companion-friendly clan could usually sniff out an intruder before they even got close enough to one of the houses within. To date only Naruto and Danzo had managed to successfully infiltrate the clan compound without being detected, and that had been for a harmless prank on the clan head. Tsume had actually had a good laugh at the neon yellow racing stripes they had painted on Kuromaru during their second infiltration. Anyway, the point he was trying to make was that he doubted his ability to get into the compound undetected. His chakra reserves had grown excessively since the last time, and he also hadn't smelled so strongly of foxes either. It was likely that many of the clan members could already smell him. Still, Naruto was always up for a challenge, and it just so happened that this could make a good little training exercise. If he didn't get mauled by the dogs, that is, he really didn't want those kinds of injuries. Funnily enough, it was never the injuries that really affected him. No, it was the discomfort of having them heal at an astonishing rate that he disliked. He stopped walking suddenly, his feet just at the unofficial border of the Inuzuka district. Unlike the Hyuga or the late Uchiha clan, the Inuzuka didn't have any walls or physical barriers around their compound, instead opting to simply have an area as theirs that just so happened to have a very large open training ground located next to it. It was actually one of the more peaceful areas of Konoha since the clan acted as the law enforcers within their entire district. No one wanted to get on the bad side of an entire clan after all, so there was very little crime. Taking a deep breath, Naruto tried to pinpoint where Ashi's scent was coming from. If he could beeline it straight to her, then there might not even be a problem. The issue with that would be leaping over building, which would instantly warrant attention to him. Contrary to popular civilian belief, ninja did not just run across any buildings to get wherever they wanted. When there wasn't an emergency, there were specific routes that the shinobi took through the village, all of which avoided the clan compounds. Naruto frowned slightly as he picked up on the scent of his fox summon. The thing was literally in the center of the entire district, meaning he would have to put himself in an even more precarious situation than he had predicted. It wasn't that the Inuzuka themselves disliked him, it was just that so few people in general actually did like him, and the Inuzuka had dogs. Dogs that were trained to kill people made things noticeably worse. Still, he really needed to figure out what was keeping his summon here all this time. How the fox was not causing any problems back at its clan's home was a question for later. A sigh escaped him as he leapt up off the streets and took to the roofs. He just hoped he wasn't wasting his time with this. Danzo frowned as he came to the realization that his root squad was not going to return from Taki without some help from Kemi. Kakashi's team had returned a few hours ago, and the root squad should have returned as soon as they had finished giving the Uzumakis an update on the Nanabi Jinchuriki. The fact that they weren't back yet could only mean that they were either dead or captured, the former being more likely due to his mental conditioning of his earlier root members. None of them would let themselves live for very long if there was a chance that their captors could get any information and there was no hope of escape. It was slightly concerning to think that there was someone, or a group of people, who were able to take out some of his men so easily. Not so much due to the team's skill, which admittedly wasn't the best, but they had been very skilled in remaining undetected, hence they were able to get into and spy within Taki. Whoever found them must have been very skilled or very lucky. The old Warhawk's paranoia made him instantly assume the former. People were not that lucky, ever. Unless they happened to contain the Kyuubi. There was a disturbing pattern when it came to the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and their luck, starting all the way back with Mito Uzumaki. Either way, the team's disappearance hadn't caused much of an issue. The Nanabi Jinchuriki had still been brought back to the village, there were no official casualties, and Taki's leader was trying to maintain the calm of his village. All in all, it was a successful mission, if not a bit over the top in some ways. The boys' secondary mission report had shed some light on why it had taken so long to restrain the Jinchuriki, as well as Naruto's killing of an apparent Kaguya. How Orochimaru had acquired such a specimen was something Danzo was most curious about. With a bored expression, The crippled elder glanced down at the folder that had a brief evaluation of the Nanabi Jinchuriki. Fu. From what Naruto and Izo had noted, the girl was definitely skilled and highly promising. She was able to utilize a good amount of her Baiju's respective power while still maintaining an adequate level of control, and she was generally well skilled without her Baijuo. Danzo knew he wouldn't be allowed to train her like he had always wanted to train a Jinchuriki, but he was okay with that. Hiruzen had made him realize that an emotionless tool was not always the best thing, especially when it pertained to a Jinchuriki, whose power was directly related to emotions. Danzo hated to admit it, but things had been progressing far beyond even his expectations since he had joined forces with Hiruzen. Although the methods had been altered to make them friendlier and such, the foundation was easily 5 times stronger now than it ever had been. The elder had no plans to stab his old rival in the back anytime soon, considering how the Sarutobi had been changing his outlook on things. Sure, they weren't as extreme as his own, but they were still more appropriate for a Hokage and also far more promising. He emotionlessly returned to his other paperwork, the ones that regarded the overall running of the foundation. It would not do for things to suddenly go out of order just because he got a little lazy. This is definitely a waste of time, Naruto concluded as he watched Ashi sleep peacefully from his perch on her windowsill, his fox summon snuggled up to her and her arms cuddled around it. Under any other circumstances, the scene before him would have been absolutely adorable. The blonde had very little doubt that Mikado would be a squealing mess if she could see what he was seeing. Whether or not that came after or before she decided to memorize the image with her Sharingan, he did not know. All that really mattered right now was that his target was asleep next to his secondary target, and he wasn't sure how to go about the rest of his admittedly not well thought out plan. The entire idea had been constructed on his need to be out of the house while Fu got the talk given to her. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. Naruto wasn't completely sure on how to handle the situation, but he would also be damned before he let all his effort, which wasn't very much, go to waste just because the girl was asleep. He didn't want to wake her up, but she was leaving him with very little choice in the matter. So, with his mind made up, Naruto went about waking her up in the most gentle way he could think of. By literally throwing her off the bed. She squealed as she fell through the air and landed painfully on the ground, the fox yipping and clinging fearfully to the girl as best it could. To her credit, the girl was quite fast to roll onto her hands and feet and prepare herself as best as she could for a fight. Considering she was only a newbie academy student, her preparations were not very adequate. Naruto was impressed by her quick thinking and also a little intrigued since his fox summon had done much the same thing while putting itself between him and the girl protectively. Clearly, he had not taken this kind of thing into consideration when he had left her with the foxes. As soon as Ashi realized that she wasn't in any danger, and also took notice of Naruto staring at her with a bored expression, she blushed slightly and chuckled sheepishly as she got to her feet groggily. She was just woken up after all. The fox at her feet had the decency to droop its ears and avoid eye contact with the blonde, clearly assuming that it was in some form of trouble for its actions. The girl simply yawned and climbed back onto the bed before turning to stare at Naruto with half-lighted eyes. "Why are you here?" she drawled tiredly. Naruto frowned. "Shouldn't you be more concerned about someone breaking into your room and throwing you out of bed?" he asked curiously. Her actions thus far pointed the possibility of this being a regular occurrence. Ashi shrugged. "Kiba does this to me every now and then, so it's not a huge surprise." "Well, that answered that. And I've been talking to Shadow for several days about you. As far as he is concerned, you're the greatest thing to ever happen to the Fox Summon clan, not a single bad thing to be said apparently. I trust him, so I don't think I could ever really see you as a threat anymore," she explained casually. The Uzumaki deadpanned at the fox that had curled itself up in the girl's lap. "You're really not making things easy, man," he droned, getting a smug look from the small canine. "Anyway, I'm here because..." "Wait, the fox's name is Shadow?" Naruto asked in surprise before once again staring at the animal in question. "How come none of you guys tell me your names? They're kids, they can't talk like humans yet. I'm an Inuzuka, so I can understand what he says now without any problems. Pretty cool too. Almost like my own companion." She muttered the last part quietly, thinking Naruto wouldn't hear. "You do realize that he has to go back to his home, right? He can't stick around here forever. It's draining on my chakra, if only slightly. And if he gets killed, I will be the one at fault," Naruto explained calmly. Ashi pouted. "I know. But we have a connection," the girl exclaimed proudly. "He's just like a Ninken." Shadow further enforced the point by yipping happily and nodding. Naruto sighed and moved over to sit on the other end of the bed. "I think you misinterpreted what I meant when I told you try and find a companion from somewhere else. Summoning animals should have been naturally assumed as off-limits, but my mommy says that there's a ninja who uses summoning animals as his ninkan. I think she said his name was Kakashi. She countered. Yes, but he actually has a contract between himself and the summoned dogs. You, however, do not have a contract with the Fox Summon clan, therefore you cannot keep one, Naruto explained. He was feeling slightly guilty about having to split the two up after they had apparently bonded so much. It was actually quite surprising since the Fox Summons were usually not all that comfortable around humans unless there was a fight. They were usually quite distant, although extremely insightful and wise creatures. Ashi's eyes gleamed slightly as a brilliant idea popped into her mind. What if I do sign the Fox contract? She asked hopefully, staring at Naruto with the biggest puppy dog eyes humanly possible. You're 9 years old and not even an actual shinobi yet. The responsibility of a summoning contract might be a bit much for you right now. I'm also pretty damn sure that there is an age limit or parental permission requirement with signing things. I'm 9.5, thank you very much. And if all I need is for my mommy to give permission, then I won't have a problem, the girl stated happily. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the girl. I'm not going to win this, am I? He asked in a defeated tone. Ashi shook her head and smiled. Not a chance. The girls are always dominant, she declared proudly. That is a slightly disturbing revelation. Either way, the foxes will still have to agree to the whole thing, which while I don't doubt they would, it would be a somewhat time-consuming process and not one that I am prepared to go through with just because you want a friend. A summoning contract is a promise between summoner and summons, a bond of friendship that shouldn't be taken lightly. If you really want to go through with that, you have to accept responsibility. And also make sure it's okay with your mom, the Jinchuriki explained seriously. Who is your mom anyway? He asked curiously. Ashi grinned. The clan head, Sume, she answered cheerfully. Huh, didn't think she had any kids other than Hana and Kiba. Oh well, not my concern. Just check with her and get back to me with the answer. Until then though, you are going to have to part ways with Shadow here, Naruto said, completely disregarding the fact that he was currently in the house of the Inuzuka clan head. Wait. My mommy is just downstairs. We can go and get her permission right now, the girl said excitedly. Naruto froze and his eyes widened slightly. Tsume Inuzuka was not someone who he wanted to get on the bad side of, if only because she was likely to really hurt him with a smile on her face. Somehow, the clan head was aware of Naruto's healing factor, and he knew for a fact that she would use it to her benefit. Walking downstairs from her supposed daughter's room, which he was not supposed to be in, let alone the Inuzuka district itself, was a one-way ticket to castration. Kiba and Hana would probably also be next in line to hurt him. Nope, he was definitely not going to reveal himself after breaking into Ashi's room. Maybe another time. Your mother and I do not have the best of history and I would much like to keep my face not mauled to pieces. Wait until I'm long gone before you even mention my name to her, and then make sure that she doesn't even suspect that I was in this part of the village. You know what? Don't even mention me at all, just ask about a summoning contract and don't be specific, he said hurriedly. Now if you don't mind, I'm getting out of here before Tsume catches even a whiff of my scent. You are a good 10 minutes too late for that brat, a gruff female voice growled from the windowsill. Naruto's eyes widened to comical proportions as he turned and waved nervously to the feral-looking woman. Hey, Tsume-chan, he greeted shakily. Tsume smirked. Chan, huh? Getting a little cocky there, aren't you, brat? You know, I actually considered killing you after that stunt you pulled with my underwear, despite how tastefully done it was. I decided to let you off after the racing stripes on Kuromaru, but now this. Breaking into my youngest daughter's room. I didn't take you for the pedophile type, she said casually, grinning viciously the whole time. Okay, first of all, I'm only like 3 years older than her, so you can't just label me a pedophile like that. Secondly, that stunt I pulled with your underwear was Hafizo's idea and he was the one who kept a pair of your panties and left that note for you. Thirdly, I appreciate your admiration for the racing stripes, I thought they were pretty cool too. And finally, how long have you been there? He asked calmly, trying his absolute best to hide his extreme levels of nervousness. Long enough, the woman answered simply. Well, shit, better start running, she suggested in a sing-song tune. Exactly my intention, Naruto confirmed before running to the door, throwing it open and running out. A loud crashing sound and a squeal of pain came from the hallway outside. That's for painting my fur like that, you little shit. It took 3 weeks of baths to wash that out. Do you have any idea how much I hate baths? A deep voice growled angrily. Come on, Kuromaru. I thought we could be pals, Naruto pleaded. Another pain squeal echoed throughout the house as the large wolfish dog began to maul at its prey. Tsume chuckled and ruffled Ashi's hair slightly as her daughter cuddled a small fox kid in her lap. She would have to talk to the brats about the whole summoning contract dilemma later on. After she had her fun messing with the Kyubey brat, that is. Still, Ashi hadn't gotten a regular ninkin like the other children. So perhaps looking into other possibilities would be a good idea for her. The Uzumaki was a good kid, if not a bit childish, and from what she had seen and heard about the older one, Naruto was the lesser of the two evils. That, my little one, is why you should never go through mommy's room. Understand? She asked in a sweet motherly tone. Ashi nodded dumbly. Okay mommy, she said quietly. Oh dear Kami, not my good hand, please. I need that for my lonely nights. Naruto screamed in horror. Ah, no. Not the coat. Anything but the coat. The young girl tilted her head in curiosity. Mommy, what's a lonely night? She asked innocently. Tsume choked on her words suddenly. I'll tell you when you're older, she answered hesitantly. Alright. But what about the summoning contract? Can I sign it? Ashi asked pleadingly, once again using her puppy dog eyes to the best of her abilities. Maybe. I'll have to think about it for a while. You'll need to think about it too. Naruto was right when he said that summoning contracts are serious things, Tsume said in a lecturing tone. The girl whined as she crossed her arms and pouted. Why can't anything be simple? Tsume shrugged. I dunno. Now, how about you help me mop up the remains of the brat, she suggested cheerfully. Ashi sighed deeply. Fine, so the guys and the girls get together in bed and do all that stuff? Fu asked in unveiled shock. Well, not all of that stuff. No one has enough energy to do everything in one go. But that's about the gist of it, Mikado replied casually. You shouldn't need to worry about too much of this for a while, but it never hurts to be prepared. This was such a waste of time. She didn't even get grossed out by the STDs, Kurotsuchi complained. No, but you sure did. I honestly never imagined that your face could twist into an expression of such disgust. It was glorious and shall remain in my memory for many more years, until such a time that I feel that revealing it would most humiliate you, Izo said with a mischievous smirk. Kurotsuchi turned and stared at the older teen curiously. Can you even see? I mean, you're always blindfolded, but you keep acting like you can see perfectly. That is for me to know and everyone else to fantasize about, Izo answered vaguely. Do you have the Byakugan? Fu asked suddenly. I have heard about dojutsu transplants before. Taki made sure that I knew as much as I could about those kinds of things in case they ever needed to use me against someone with a Kekkei Genkai. However, from what I learned about the Hyuga clan, I would never imagine that they would allow someone outside of their own to wield the eye. Both Fu and Kurotsuchi stared at Izo curiously while Mikado just offered the boy a smile. The woman was not privileged to the knowledge about whatever was under the boy's bandages, much like almost everyone else, but she was willing to respect his privacy in much the same way he thought he was hers with the Anbu mask. Still, that didn't mean she wasn't curious as all hell. She rather liked being the only one of the Uzumaki family with a dojutsu. Even if she was an Uchiha by blood, she had long since cut her ties to that family. Okay, just to be clear here, I do not have the Byakugan. Don't even hint at that crap outside of this house. It is one thing to have to deal with the pompous clan of all-seeing royal wannabes. I do not want them demanding to know what's under my bandages, he said sternly. The three listeners could understand that. The Hyuga clan would never rest if they suspected that he had the Byakugan. Also, if you really need to know what's underneath them, all you have to do is ask. Fu and Kurotsuchi shared a look before turning back to Izo. What's under the bandages? They asked in unison. Under my bandages. Izo began in a mystical tone, hooking a finger underneath the dark green wrappings. Is more bandages, he exclaimed happily, pulling down the bandages to reveal. More bandages. Pretty cool, huh? Kurotsuchi face vaulted while Fu just tilted her head in curiosity. Mikado laughed loudly at Izo's antics and realized that there would be a particular Cyclops who would probably try to kill the boy for stealing his gimmick. Said Cyclops was enjoying a peaceful walk down an unremarkable street somewhere in Konoha, his ever-present orange-covered book held casually in his hand as his one visible eye gazed at it lazily. Things were going rather well now that he and his team were back in the village. He did have to make a quick detour to explain to Sasuke and Sakura that Fu's identity as a Jinchuriki was highly confidential information, but other than that, nothing but calm relaxation. Of course, he had heard the distant screams of Naruto not too long ago, but he chose to ignore them for now. The boy was strong enough to handle himself within the village. The Hokage froze mid-step suddenly. his one eye widening and losing its lazy yet focused edge. His fingers went stiff and lost their loose grip on his book, the small erotica novel slipping from his hand and falling to the dirt road in noisy fluttering of loose pages. The Jonin took no notice of his prized possession hitting the ground, his mind already having been fogged over by a sense of loss. It wasn't the kind of loss that one felt when they actually lost something of value to them, nor was it the heart-wrenching feeling one gets when they lose someone they care about. No, this was the feeling of having lost something that should have been rightfully his. His hand rose shakily to his mask and he instantly knew what had happened. The question now was, who would be able to, let alone willing, to take such a well-thought-out gimmick away from him? His spotlight had been stolen before it could even shine down upon him, and his sense of vengeance was all but screaming at him to get even, to eliminate the thing that had taken away his moment. But he just couldn't. It was as if the very life had been drained out of him, his energy gone completely. Glancing down, Kakashi could only stare at his fallen book in despair. In his brief moment of weakness, he had dropped it, and now the weight of that action was bearing down on him. Falling to his knees, Kakashi could only stare aimlessly into the sky in silent grief and depression. He refused to acknowledge the multitude of strange looks he was getting from everyone around him, including the other shinobi. All he knew was that he needed to somehow regain his sense of importance, his pride, his self-respect. It seemed he would need to go searching for Guy. Izo and Mikado felt a disturbing chill go down their spines. It was haunting, terrifyingly so. They had no doubt that several other people within the village had felt the same foreboding sensation, possibly even a large number, some of whom that probably wouldn't even be able to understand it. Sometimes this sense of dread was just that strong that it was simply detectable by anyone whom said predicted dread would affect in some way. I just triggered a possible cataclysmic event, didn't I? Izo muttered fearfully. Mikado nodded sadly. You may have killed us all, she replied softly. Anyway. Crazy family interactions aside. Is this over now? I didn't get to see Mindy here get grossed out, so I think I'll just go waste a few hours in the onsen, Kurotsuchi droned disappointedly. Well, not really. The talk itself is over, and Fu-chan here knows practically all of the facts on the art itself. However, I feel that we aren't quite done, the Uchiha said vaguely, directing her attention to Izo. Izo shrugged. Not all that much left actually. Give her an Icha collection for future reference if you want, but other than that, everything should be. Wait, no. I was wrong. She doesn't understand social interactions all too well and needs to know what to do and what not to do in regards to her being a girl. She literally offered for me to check if the carpet matched the drapes, he explained with a chuckle. Fu crossed her arms and huffed. It's not my fault. And if you didn't want to know, why did you ask? I wanted to know, but just because I wanted to know, doesn't mean that you should offer to let me check myself. You're just supposed to tell me and I'm supposed to take your word for it, the older teen retorted. Terrible idea considering we're a ninja. I could have easily lied to you about it, the Jinchuriki countered. Yes, but the answer isn't of a life and death level of importance. Even if you lied, it still wouldn't really matter, unless it came down to some sort of identity crisis and we had to make sure it was definitely you. Other than that, there is no logical reason for that information to be used, Izo explained. Does the carpet match the drapes? Kurotsuchi asked curiously, getting an odd stare from the other three. What? I'm curious now. I think we should just move on to explaining how to react properly in social situations, for everyone's sake, Mikado suggested, clearly showing herself to be the voice of reason. Screw this, I'm going to the onsen, the Iwakunoichi groaned as she walked off. Well, since you're just going to divulge into girl talk, I think I'll head off too. Might go and make sure that Naruto hasn't gotten himself killed somehow. Got any idea as to why he might be in the Inuzuka compound? Izo asked his adopted mother. Not really. Last I checked, Naruto made a point not to put himself anywhere dangerously close to Tsume-chan, Mikado answered. Perhaps she caught him and dragged him back to her home, she suggested offhandedly. Oh well, not my problem for now. Maybe I'll go check out Root headquarters or something. Gauge the newbies a bit and assert my authority if I can, the team mused thoughtfully. You do realize that you technically don't have that much authority anymore. Being ranked Genin does that, Mikado said smugly. Izo waved her off dismissively. Not of consequence. They know who I am and so they know to listen to me. Do you think anyone will stop listening to the old geezer when he finally gives the hat up? If he can maintain that authority even after losing his cage title, then I can keep mine despite my rank. Mikado and Fu watched as Izo lazily sauntered out of the room and eventually out of the house. That boy is going to get himself killed one day, and I truly pity whoever is around him when it happens, the Uchiha said with a sigh. Fu worked her head to the side. Why do you say that? Because Fu, if there is one thing you need to know about any Uzumaki, whether they be won through actual blood or just by name, it's that they refuse to go out in anything less than a blaze of glory. It's more of a fancy way of saying giant-ass explosion. But you get my point, Mikado explained. Oh, the girl said in understanding. Anyway, back to the lesson. I suppose the first thing I should tell you is that you should never offer yourself to anyone other than the one you love, for romantic's sake, and most certainly don't just offer to let them see your private areas. Got it so far? The woman asked. Fu pouted. Yeah, I got it, she grumbled. She really didn't like being reminded about how she had offered to let Izo check, especially now that she somewhat understood what the big deal was. So far, however, she only understood that it was a big deal because such an action would, in most people's minds, lead to sex or something. She still didn't see what the importance was of making sure that no one saw her exposed. Akunoichi had more important things to worry about in her life than maintaining modesty, and it wasn't as if the female body was some huge secret to be kept hidden. She had no doubt that everyone knew exactly what was underneath people's clothes by the time they were out of the academy. That being said, she was still very appreciative of the woman's readiness to explain anything to her without hesitation. Shibuki had tried to teach her some other things outside of her training, but she didn't think he would have ever branched into this subject with her. The thought of Taki's village leader turning into a blushing, stuttering mess was not one she would be forgetting anytime soon. Naruto glared tiredly at Tsume as the woman sat across the table from his, happily drinking her sake. His left arm hung limply at his side, a small stream of blood dripping from his fingertips as the multiple puncture wounds all healed themselves quickly. His coat was all but torn to pieces, which made Naruto thankful that it had the capacity for self-repair, the result of several advantageous seals that he himself had found in his father's study notes. Apparently, the man was very fond of his trademark coat. The blonde's blue eyes, now reminiscent of glaciers, locked onto a much too happy Kuromaru. The large hound was sitting happily at Tsume's side, licking its maw clean of the small traces of blood that stained his fur. The dog had gotten its revenge, if only out of Naruto's mercy. That didn't mean that the war was over, however. Oh no, there was far more to come for the Ninken to suffer through. Naruto would make sure of it. The only real question he had was why on earth he was still here? He had expected Tsume to kick him out as soon as Kuromaru was done mauling him, but she had dragged him to the kitchen and sat him down. He wasn't entirely sure on where Ashi had run off to, but he was sure that she was no longer in the house, and that only made him more uneasy. Care to explain the purpose of keeping me here? He asked calmly, hoping beyond hope that he didn't piss the woman off any more than he already had. Mikado had some very detailed stories about what Tsume could do when pissed off. Needless to say, he wanted to preserve his manhood. Just to talk, the clan head answered casually, taking another sip of her sake. I was rather curious the other week when Ashi came home with a fox in her arms. When she started asking about you though, well, that really piqued my interest. Who would have thought you of all people would have a fox summoning contract? It's quite ironic? Naruto asked. I was going to say fitting, but all right, Tsume said with a shrug. The point is my daughter has become attached to foxes now. It's not surprising since the Ninken of our clan don't seem to like her, but it is still a complicated situation nonetheless. Yeah, summoning contracts are a tricky business. She's lucky, I had to learn that all the very hard way. Many a concussion were given that day, the blonde said sadly. The real question I have though, is who Ashi really is? She is definitely Inuzuka, I can smell that much. But your daughter? I doubt that. It's kinda a big deal when a clan head has a child, and records only show you having two, Naruto said suspiciously. Tsume tensed slightly and narrowed her eyes on the boy, Kuromaru growling slightly and putting his hackle up threateningly. Whoa, easy, Naruto said quickly, realizing he was stepping on a line. I won't delve any deeper, I swear. Your secret, your decision. But still. She is very serious about signing the summoning contract, and I need to know if it is safe for me to allow that. Would you allow her to sign it? Tsume asked seriously. She wasn't stupid and she knew that the decision was ultimately left up to the summons themselves, but the current summoner was also important in any second signings of the contract. If Naruto said no, then the foxes were likely to listen to him. Tsume wanted nothing more than for Ashi to be happy, and if that meant signing a contract with the foxes, then so be it. I don't have any problems with it. The foxes though, they might be a little difficult to convince. They don't like people, especially those from Konoha for obvious reasons, but they also have a thing against dogs. Overall, Your clan represents a lot of everything that they don't like, which makes Shadow's apparent liking of Ashi all the more interesting, Naruto replied. Shadow? The woman asked in confusion. The fox? Ah yeah, anyway. If she wants to sign the contract, I'm going to need to know that her situation, if we can call it that, will not cause any problems with the foxes at all. Can you assure me of that? He asked seriously. Tsume frowned, but still nodded. It shouldn't be a problem so long as I can help it, she said in a slight growl. Okay, that's that out of the way. Any idea where Ashi is? Naruto asked curiously. The Inuzuka and her Ninken both deadpanned at the boy. She went to the academy for the day, they both replied in unison. Oh. I forgot that thing even existed anymore, the Jinchuriki muttered offhandedly. Rightio then, I'll drop in at some point tomorrow to sort this out. You talk to Ashi tonight and explain the seriousness of the contract to her in depth, and if possible, teach her the seals for summoning in preparation. Do not let her try and summon without a contract. If by some miracle she has an affinity for foxes, then a reverse summon to their den would be not pleasant, for either of us. Fine. I'll talk to her. We'll be here tomorrow. But can I ask you something? Sure, Naruto said cheerfully. Why are you doing this for her? Tsume asked curiously, eyeing the boy intensely. Naruto's face twisted into the stupidest grin he could manage, so widely stupid that he was forced to squint his eyes. Why the hell do you think? I've always wanted an apprentice. I feel that I have many things to pass on to the younger generations of Konoha. Get out already, have the blonde said cheekily before bursting into a cloud of smoke. Kuromaru? Yes? The hound asked. Next time you have my permission to rip his balls off, Tsume growled irritably. With pleasure. Anko was happy. After getting back from her mission with the Uzumaki family, she had been put under a quick basic assessment of her skills and tested to see if she was worth accepting into the ranks of Root. She passed, thankfully. Now she was stuck in the basic Root forces until she showed any outstanding promise in a field that would get her into one of the other Foundation branches. She was aiming for Fall, knowing that she didn't have a hope in hell in STEM. All that aside though, she was exceptionally pleased with how things were going overall. Now that she was an official member of Root, she was privileged to more classified information than she had been before as a special Jonin. That also meant she was given a brief rundown on the plan that Danzo and the Hokage were cooking up. Needless to say, Anko was quite excited to finally be a part of something where she wasn't the odd one out, not excluded because of her past, and not ridiculed for her attitude, habits, or clothing choices. Danzo may have been harsh and strict when it came to the few rules that the Foundation had, but so long as you follow those perfectly, he honestly couldn't care less about what the members did. She moaned tiredly and absent-mindedly bit her tongue lightly. There was still a very slight throbbing pain from when they had grafted the seal there, which she had been told was a new and improved version made by Izo. She still wasn't sure on what to make of the thought of Izo being the Foundation's top seal expert, but it literally didn't matter anymore. She had practically signed her life over to Root now. On the plus side, they had given her the option of dropping out of the program and having her memories wiped before they actually put the seal on her. Apparently, they were taking her past experience with cursed seals into consideration. I honestly took you for the kind to sleep naked, a voice said mischievously from her bedroom door. With reflexive speed honed through years of training, Anko rolled off of her bed and threw a kunai, which had been under pillow, at whoever had entered her domain uninvited. The satisfying squelching sound of the blade piercing flesh made her glance at her target with a victorious smirk, only to pause suddenly and widen her eyes slightly. Standing at her bedroom door, with a kunai sticking out from between two of his ribs, was none other than Izo, who by all rights have complete authority over her. She really hoped she hadn't just signed her own death certificate. Yeah, hey, sorry about that, she said sheepishly, scratching the back of her head and grinning nervously. Could be worse. I think I'll write this off as deserved punishment for breaking into your apartment, Izo said casually, completely shrugging of the small blade stabbed into him. Thanks. Again, I'm real sorry about that, Anko replied apologetically. You can yell or scream if you need to. I soundproofed my room, she offered. Nah, I'm gonna save that for later on when the time is right. Nice call on soundproofing the room, by the way, he said with a dismissive wave. What exactly are you doing here? The snake summoner asked curiously. Oh right, the reason, the teen said cheerfully, casually removing the kunai from his ribs and throwing it to the side. I am here to ask you a very important question, to which you shall give a very serious answer. Ready? Anko nodded unsurely. What's the question? Anko Mitarashi, would you allow me to remove your clothes? And take a close look at that seal on your neck? Omake, Sume's underwear. Naruto stifled an evil chuckle as he dipped another of Tsume's bras into the container of fluorescent pink paint that he had brought along with him. It was a special mix of paint that he himself had created for pranking purposes, and not the kind that could be washed out, ever. This, however, was not a public humiliation prank. No, it was an irritation and mentally frustrating prank that was the current aim of his actions. If public humiliation was the actual goal, he and Izo would have gone after the woman's clothes in general. Speaking of Izo, the older boy had called dibs on the panty draw almost as soon as the plan had even been suggested. The overall goal was to not have anyone else realize the drastic change in the clan head's underwear, instead opting to just have her suffer through the knowledge that she was wearing bright fluorescent colors underneath her uniform. It was beyond hilarious as to how effective such a tactic actually was, even against seasoned jonin. Naruto wasn't sure how it would affect the Inuzuka clan head, but it was worth waiting to see. Naruto. You need to come and see this, Izo whispered in awe. Naruto held back a groan. Izo, I am not interested in whatever manner of raunchy panties Tsume has hidden away. Just finish up the job and get out quickly, the blonde whispered back harshly. No, seriously, this could be the greatest thing we could have found out about Tsume, the older sibling replied quietly. The Jinchuriki groaned mentally as he silently moved over to where his brother was. What the hell is? Oh, he stopped and quirked an eyebrow at the sight before him, wondering if what he was seeing was actually real. As it turned out, Tsume had a locked drawer, which had now been opened, and revealed to be full of small cat plushie toys and other strange cat-orientated items. The highlight of the small collection was a pair of rather ordinary panties with a small picture of a kitten printed on the front, the words "Eat Me" printed just above it. It was a slightly disturbing thing to find in Naruto's point of view, but not one without potential. I am so keeping these, Izo said cheekily. Naruto stared at his brother in surprise. What the hell are you keeping them for? Izo shrugged. Safety net against the Inuzuka clan, he replied casually. The blonde snorted. Whatever then. Let's just get out of here before we get caught. Hang on. I'm leaving a present, Izo said as he pulled out a small piece of paper and a pencil and started writing something down. When he was finished, he placed the small note in the drawer where the panties had been and signaled to Naruto that they could leave now, hiding the kitten-printed panties away in his weapons pouch. A few hours later, Tsume stared wide-eyed at the note in her hands. The words written so elegantly on the paper only seeming to exist for the sole purpose of tormenting her further. Her private drawer had been raided and her secret collection had been found out, a piece of said collection even having been taken by the culprits. The note was simple, short, and very much to the point. She wasn't happy with it, but she had to give the guys credit for managing to pull it off. The new fluorescent coloring to all of her underwear was merely icing on the cake. We have them. We will use them. Keep that in mind. That was all the note said, with a small spiral symbol printed neatly at the bottom of it. The Inuzuka had a very good idea as to who had left the note, who had the gall to break into her room and raid through her things. She only knew one person with the guts to do that, and she expected nothing less than this from the son of Kushina Uzumaki. It was just unfortunate that she was not yet aware of Izo. Well, Naruto-kun, it seems you have started a war you can't possibly hope to win, Tsume said with a light chuckle. She would definitely have her revenge, that much she knew for certain. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.